Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello. Welcome to Experiential Marketing Unveiled. I'm John DL.
And I'm just taking a quick sip of Lemsip. I've got a slight cold at the moment, and I'm James Banfield. Yeah, really excited to take everyone through this presentation. We've got a live demo at the end, which will be super exciting for people, I'm sure.
Yeah, we've got we're streaming from LinkedIn and from YouTube. So welcome. It'd be great to know who's on the call. So please feel free to drop in a hello. Let us know where you are today. And we are excited to kickstart this webinar and dive into Experiential Marketing Unveiled. And we've got a couple of, I think we've got one special guest. I don't know if we've got two today, James.
We can make the decision near the time, I think, as to how many we let out the box.
Okay, but, cool. Yeah, and if you have questions along the way, please add them into the comments. It'd be great to get your feedback, perspectives. But we want to take you on a journey of where we think technology is going to be intersecting with experiential marketing, and you know, turn that into a almost an immersive story, James.
Oh, there we go. Well, should we start off with the big number?
Let's do the big number. So I think we're well aware, you know, particularly in the marketing profession, that there is a huge amount of content out in the marketplace that you know, we're getting bombarded with. So I did some research in the week sort of prior to the webinar, because I was just curious to understand, you know, what does the digital content saturation footprint look like? And it's colossal. So colossal, it's not even in gigabytes now, it's in zettabytes. And this is the estimated global data consumption for 2025 at 175 zettabytes. Now, to give you context and perspective against that, if you were to go and pull out of your video shelf, if you're still not fully digital, a Blu-ray disc, and stack that on top of each other, that would equate to, I think, a visit to the moon 23 times.
Which is
so, yeah, colossal amount of data that we're getting bombarded with on a yearly basis, let alone a daily basis now. And that is only going to be growing. Only going to be growing. And I think there's a big shift now to it becoming much more real time.
And it's a number that's just accelerating, isn't it? It's on a logarithmic curve. So this number is just continuing to get bigger and bigger and faster and faster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is just incredible. And you mentioned Blu-ray. Blu-ray for a number of us was the pinnacle of video quality a decade ago, maybe 2 decades ago. But it's incredible to think how much data is now just floating around without even a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also if you think about sort of digital interactions that you have a day on your mobile device, probably, or your computer per day, IDC are predicting about 5,000 individual interactions per day for the average person. So there is a whole sea of data to sort of wade through, and obviously that comes down to the question is, well, how do you get people to pay attention when you are bombarded with that amount of content on a daily basis?
Yeah, and I think a lot of us could probably resonate with that, in the sense of when we were last on social media, could any one of us name in order the last 10 adverts that they consumed on social media? And I think the answer is probably limited. You may be able to do one or two, but to actually name all of them, and that's just because of the volume now is just so high that we become a little bit numb to it. Hence the reason why we need better experiences moving forward.
Absolutely.
So, this is when we talk about digital content saturation. If we think back, and I mentioned it a minute ago about a decade ago, Blu-ray, maybe 15 years, Blu-ray was right at its highest peak. But the key point here is that back in, let's say, the 80s, 90s, and early noughties, just as the web was developing for the first time, most of the advertising and the way that brands would get attention would often be via print. So print advertising was the main route, and then when we moved on to the digital with initially with the internet, but then the powerhouse of the mobile phone, and the fact that there was a device that people would use, especially when they were traveling and consuming lots of content, then that it massively accelerated the kind of content saturation point. And we're in the middle of that, towards the end of the digital phase, and we're entering into what Apple's kind of coining the spatial phase, because they're desperate not to use words like the metaverse and other bits and pieces, which I totally understand the reasons why. But the spatial one is effectively a mix between the two, where you have the physical world, which print would exist in, and the digital world, and the two will combine into the spatial. So the digital world, the digital content's going to continue. It's not going anywhere soon. But what we're going to see is more innovative ways for spatial. And a key thing with spatial is, although we've got an image there of a Vision Pro, spatial actually covers so many different other types of technology that will exist, are already existing now, but are starting to get a foothold. So think of spatial more as digital content in a physical world is the easiest way. How it gets there doesn't really matter. But spatial is this fact that you can have unique digital content in a physical world, and there'll be many technologies. There's some that already exist. We've got some slides a bit later about some crazy stuff that's kind of going on. But the fact that this is already taking a foothold is great. And I was flying a week ago, and I was at the airport and I saw two people, John, wearing Vision Pros whilst they're in the queue waiting to board a plane. And I never thought I'd see the day where people were wearing headsets in public. I thought a lot of that was marketing spin, people trying to get social media likes initially, but I actually saw two people seriously wearing them and seemed to be having a wonderful time whilst being aware of the world around them. I honestly didn't expect to see that, but I was quite surprised.
Are you sure there wasn't an Apple marketing crew in the background there just getting some footage? I think the other point, just to touch on what James is saying about sort of the spatial world and the technology sort of integration there, I don't think anybody is not aware of. Obviously, AI will have a big part to play in this spatial development space. Obviously, you're going to have virtual reality, you're going to have augmented reality, you're going to have infusion of sensor technology and capabilities. And obviously, you're going to have sort of high-level computing all spinning together to create this heady mix of experiences and content, which is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, and I think the main thing here is spatial and digital. We've got some, we'll talk about this in a second, but both of those genres have the ability to create really exceptional experiences and memorable experiences. So although we're talking about content saturation and how have we got to this point where there's an enormous amount of saturation, they also represent great opportunities and for experiences to take place on a one-to-one level, but also on a one-to-many level on these various different platforms. So,
and I think the interesting point there, though, James, is that we talk about digital content saturation, and it's true. But I think with some of these technologies coming into the marketplace, there's actually going to be a content gap, because the type of content that these platforms and technologies require is much further behind. So there's going to be this huge shift also in the style of content that comes to support these new technologies, which will further down the line add further weight to the content saturation that we are exposed to on a daily basis. But fundamentally, there is this gap with these new technologies that will need to be filled, and how do we best go about doing that?
Yeah, 100%. So moving on. The big figure here, 79 billion, which is the expected market size by, I think, the end of this year, if I remember correctly, for the experiential marketing spend, which is just a phenomenal number, and it's a number that's growing. So the reason why is it growing? Because brands are always looking at ways that they can get a better engagement with their consumer and change the consumer's decision. If they're looking at one brand, how can they convert them from brand A to brand B? How can they engage them with new technologies or new features, etc.? And what we're seeing is experiential is the way that a lot of brands are seeing that as an opportunity and a good ROI in a world that's full of traditional forms of advertising. Now, of course, traditional forms of advertising will always continue, and will need to. It'll be a mixed bag of solutions for sure. But experiential is definitely one of the ways that people are seeing, and that's the reason why this number is growing. And it's an insanely large number, and huge spend.
Yeah, it is. And if you look specifically at sort of immersive events being on the rise, and that should say 60%, you're looking at sort of over 60% of marketers are planning to allocate a higher budget to their experiential marketing events this year. And that will be from sort of high-end couture businesses all the way through to businesses that can leverage, augmented reality at a very low price point to create an immersive experience. So it transcends, I think, all levels of businesses. It's going to be how creative can you get in creating an immersive experience.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting one as well, because there's I think it's 77% of millennials prioritize spending on experiences over possessions. Yep. So we've got a shift of people not wanting to own things necessarily, but they have experiences. So with brands that are deliberately targeting their marketing activities to be experiential, you're leaning into that millennial kind of trend anyway, in a good way. So your marketing fits with some of the points that millennials are kind of are making in terms of how they do their consumer spending in general.
Yeah, and I think the other attraction as well is that, from the market data, you're getting consumers are more likely to convert after engaging in a brand experience or activity. So businesses are prepared to invest. I think that's partly why you're seeing that significant rise, to 79 billion. And that landscape is changing because people are responding. I think people want, and probably post-COVID, want to have, real live interactions and experiences. Unsurprisingly.
Yeah, and there's some further insights here. As you can see there, 67% of marketers, B2B marketers, plan to increase their experiential marketing budgets, which is great for brands that are involved in the experiential side of things. There's year-on-year growth. I think experiential companies and brands are expected to grow by at least 10% this year alone. So it's a continually high growth rate area that's continuing to expand. And on top of that, we've got 85% of the luxury brands, where with luxury brands, they're low volume but high value, and some of the best kind of fashion brands have done some incredible engagements, especially when they had to in COVID. I was involved with one with Balenciaga, where we were scanning and creating a virtual world, and creating digital fashion characters right in the middle of the pandemic, because for fashion industry, they've got the summer and fall, and they've got to get the spring and fall collections, and they're the big kind of cornerstones that happen, pandemic or no pandemic. They still need to get the collections out, and they need to engage in a kind of interesting way. So you've seen some amazing stuff that's been going on, and there's Nike's acquisition of Rect, in terms of them using digital assets as an ownable thing, is a really interesting kind of concept. And when you see the big brands kind of playing in this kind of area, it gets really fascinating in terms of like what can actually be achieved.
And I think it's interesting, James, because I think it's transcending into a lot of sectors in the marketplace as well. So, you're seeing sort of museums, you're seeing big art galleries creating immersive experiences as well. So it's going beyond just the traditional approach of I'm going to go and look at an amazing painting and absorb that. I think there's Van Gogh is a great one. I think that's caught my eye to late as well, purely because I love Van Gogh. But these experiences are amazing. It's great seeing the painting and it's amazing to see it. But I think sometimes you can really bring it to life now, which is a lot of brands are doing actively.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, from a marketing perspective, if you're doing these experiential points, the one of the core metrics that you're going to be using to validate if this experience has worked well or not is how many people share their thoughts and comments on social media, because obviously that's the word of mouth process that we have in modern times. And one of the things that's kind of always important to understand is like that 87% of attendees that experience an event, statistically have an Instagram account. So they're already sharing a lot of what's going on in their life on an Instagram account. And if you're targeting like the 18 to 24-year-olds, then you need to be targeting the Snapchat group. And I know my son is, he's not 18 yet, but he's definitely, all of his friends are using the Snapchat platform in terms of the way that they share information. And then, last but not least, TikTok, which is phenomenal growth over the last 5 years. 4.7 billion downloads to date across iOS and Android devices. It's just unbelievable the kind of reach that these platforms have. So making sure that experiential event is easy to transfer, whether it could be captured via video and shared, or whether the content can be shared on those platforms as an evolution or executionable, is a really important thing to consider when you're doing an event, especially an experience event. Is how will people share this information? How will it grow your brand existentially beyond the person having experienced themselves?
Yeah, and I think on top of that, James, I think you're going to see brands collaborate with influencers in these experiences, and that's going to be both virtual influencers, and you'd have seen the growth in some of those virtual influencers in the marketplace, quite phenomenal, as much as sort of real-time human interaction. But it's going to be interesting because I think the virtual influencers are here to stay in many forms as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be leveraged significantly across social sharing platforms.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And of course, the technologies that exist in terms of experiential, the core ones that we're interested in are the VR and AR aspects. So with VR, brands are doing some incredible stuff where they're creating immersive experiences that tend to be quite, one-to-one. But that one-to-one process is very memorable because it's so immersive and so unique. And of course, with the growth of the VR headsets that are existing out there, it's becoming quite an established platform in its own right. So, VR's growth is continuing, mainly due by Meta initially with its low pricing policy, but now being driven by Apple at the top end with the Vision Pro, and between those two brands, really kind of driving adoption of this type of technology on a household level. And then in AR, there's so many variations of AR we could have given as a demo, but the most obvious one I think everyone can affiliate with is the filters that you see on social media apps, where they get branded specifically for individual brands, and the ability for brands to highlight new products or new services as they come out and into the wild via filters. But there's also an abundance in AR of content that you're seeing in the world. So not just your immediate surroundings, but localized AR, so that you go to specific locations and have specific experiences, whether that's stadiums, the centers of cities, etc. That is a growing form of experiential AR experiences as well, which is fascinating.
Yeah, and I think when you merge that all together, I think what the patterns you're starting to see is that these technologies are influencing buying decisions now as well. So consumers are making are bought into interacting even at this relatively early stage virtual augmented experiences, and the data starting to show that that's really influencing positively people's buying decisions when it's specific brand related. Yeah, and it's the one of the things I think is very very useful, especially with VR, is the way that, because it's fully immersive, once you've managed to get a person to engage with an experience in VR, they will often kind of follow it through to the end of the experience, but you've actually captivated them for that entirety of that time, and provided the engagement isn't rubbish, then you actually get them for a little bit longer than you might have with AR. But with AR, it's far more sociable. It's easier to share, especially with the filters. It's easier to scale because you're not limited by the number of VR units that are in the market, or the number of people that can use a VR unit when they're at a trade show or an event.
for instance, because that's the other limiting factor that you have when you're at an event, for instance. But still, nonetheless, both growing in really positive ways. And that kind of leads us into, you know, where we see things really accelerating. And we've said tomorrow, but the reality is that all of the examples we have here are today. So on the left-hand side, we've got digital humans. So, you know, gone are the days now where digital characters needed to look kind of comic-like. So in the middle there, we have Fortnite, which has a very certain style. Digital characters and digital humans are getting more and more realistic. And we're going to see a hell of a lot more of them in the next decade, where we will have everything from talking AI, talking back to us, to digital personas that people will have, and digital personalities. And we're doing a lot with some amazing brands in that space already. From a live entertainment perspective, you know, this is Eminem's Fortnite experience he did at the end of 2023. It's kind of like the season finale. They had 3 million people experience that in real time. Although it wasn't a live event in the sense that it was a live recording of Eminem. It was a recording streamed as a live event. But you know, in the future, there's no reason, and we'll give you an example of that in a minute, why that couldn't actually be a live concert. There's no reason why that couldn't take place live. And we think that's the most exciting thing about an experiential is to have shared live experiences with live actors and live performers.
And I think, James, just touching on the digital human side, which is really fascinating, I think you're going to see the emergence of legacy avatars as well. So I think you're going to, and a great example, I think, was this week with Pop House, who've essentially bought the music rights to Kiss. Kiss no longer want to tour, but they very much want to be in the game. So you're going to see Kiss, you know, live on stage as holograms, you know, much similar to what you would have seen with ABBA Voyage. But you're going to see, I think, the creation of digital legacy humans, because people want to leave a footprint digitally now, because that is the way the world is becoming. It's, you know, it's going to transcend from a photograph, you know, to a video, to a digital avatar that you can, you know, leave as part of your legacy.
Yeah, and it's so important, you know, how does historical IP have relevance in the modern world? And as you say, one of the ways that will exist moving forward will be digital content is created using older IP, but it's giving that IP a new lease of life in a new modern way, with a modern twist. Because, you know, especially with music, there's such an affiliation with not just today's music, but music from the past, across all age groups. So I think it's such a great way to kind of leverage, you know, that type of IP as a digital human, and also for live events, etc., where, you know, they could in theory do it from a location, all be rigged up and driven as a live character. Point to note, on the left-hand side, the digital humans that are there, that is actually our performers. So all of our performers have a digital identity. We've scanned them all, and our performers have their own metahuman that we use for advertising purposes, but that can also be used for any form of other content. And you'll see in a second what we mean by kind of real-time characters. So not only can you create a character for digital human, but you can also create other characters as well. On the right-hand side, we've mentioned like OLED and LEDs. This isn't necessarily just the big screens that we're seeing, but there's some amazing technology developments that are happening in that space. Not only is the technology getting denser pixels with better contrast, you know, better illumination levels, so that you get, you know, proper blacks but proper whites and bright sunlight. But what we're also seeing is a huge growth in transparency. At CES this year, it was the second year where they've shown transparent OLEDs being shown, and that's really fascinating. Not necessarily from a computer perspective, but really fascinating from an experiential perspective as to how you'll see them being integrated and how brands will use them. And with LEDs and OLEDs, what we're now seeing with these huge deployments is that the fact that anything with a flat surface now is an opportunity for a brand or for brands to advertise on. And traditionally, that would be like physical surfaces that get blocked off. But with the latest technology, it's actually now possible to put them onto glass. So you can see through the glass, but anyone viewing in is actually seeing a transparent floating display, a bit like a hologram. It's not really a hologram, but it looks a bit like a hologram. And that is a really exciting space. And as this technology gets cheaper, we're going to see more and more of it. And I think, you know, even if you go to your local shopping mall, what used to be a poster, which was, you know, very cheap and effective means of advertising back in the day, most of those are now being replaced by TV screens, which is, you know, big part down to the fact that the price of this technology is getting cheaper and cheaper, and the volumes are going higher and higher. And now we're seeing these tiles being used where they can be wrapped around for these type of force perspective deliverables. So Darth Vader there, it looks 3D because it's been designed to be viewed from a certain specific angle, and that's without using glasses. So it's amazing the way this technology is being adapted and how it's being used moving forward, and the costs are coming down, which means the distribution is going up, and that's incredibly exciting.
And it's also going mobile as well. So, you know, there is a shift away from fixed, you know, advertising boards as we would know them, you know, and that will be the same digitally as well.
Yeah.
With, you know, mobile advertising on transport, which is there already, but that will grow in a different format. But also you're going to have mobile advertising platforms that will probably be AI integrated and driven around shopping malls that you can engage and interact with as well. So there's going to be a real shift in, you know, away from just fixed advertising to more mobile advertising to sort of complement this shift as well.
Yeah, 100%. We're seeing more and more of that. And in fact, we've had some incredible kind of conversations, which we can't go into at the moment. But the what John's referring to with mobile advertising, there's some exciting companies out there doing some really incredible stuff, which we'll be kind of talking about a bit later once those things go live. But yeah, very exciting indeed. And I guess now would be a good time to kind of consider showcasing what we're doing and where this technology is going and what we think, where this is kind of going.
We are talking about experiences, so we thought it'd be worthwhile to provide an experience along the way as well. So this is exactly what we're going to do.
I've just noticed on the comments, John, Anna's basically said that the Marshmallow concert had 10 million people, which is yes. Yeah, I picked the one that was the most recent, but yeah, it's the Fortnite piece it's incredible in its own right, how that technology is, how that platform has grown and how it's diversifying to be, a metaverse platform for a certain age group.
But it's the reach as well now. It's, people aren't going to just a physical concert now. It's the capability to be able to stream to multiple venues, potentially now to multiple, to millions of people effortlessly.
Oh, it's the one thing that the pandemic taught everyone is there's some interesting business models that can be experimented with that have huge reach. And I know Dua Lipa did a live performance from the Printworks in London, and she was streaming that performance out across the world, and made more profit from doing one performance as a streamed thing than she would actually do from appearing in concert, because there's no costs, well, very low costs from a streaming perspective, but it was going straight into people's living rooms and straight into people's homes, but it was still a live experience. and you still felt part of a community. It didn't have quite the same sense that you get at a concert. So it's one stop down from physically being there, but still as an experiential piece, it's an interesting one. But onto a live demo. Let me just showcase this. So this video that you're seeing here, this is actually Pete, who is showing us various characters on the slide here to the right. So John will hopefully be able to switch through in a second.
Yep,
Pete
can.
But this video here of Pete as he's moving shows off basically our technology. So our technology and where we fit into this space is we can basically take a live person and we can fit them out with our technology. So our suit, which we've created from scratch with we're using a Meta Quest Pro, but we could also use a Vision Pro as well on the performer's head, and we integrate this technology and we then stream that straight to the cloud. There's no PC. So because there's no PC, there's no technical software that you need to learn, etc. And because we can stream that straight to the cloud and then stream it back down to a device, which is what you're seeing on the iPad, we're actually able to animate characters in real time. So the device you see on the iPad is just to show how low the latency is. But John, if you would be so kind.
Yes. So we will introduce our first guest of the afternoon. Now and good afternoon, Johnny Goblin.
Hello.
So this is Johnny Goblin. This is one of our digital characters. Johnny, could you give everybody a wave, please? I mean, do you have any words? I don't know what a Goblin would typically say in an experiential marketing webinar, but I'm sure you'll fill us with some sense of what we're talking about.
Yeah, have you got any rotting meat? Because I'm getting a bit sick of this maggoty bread you keep paying me.
Yeah. Can't get the staff. But John, I think we should probably just give a quick explanation of what people are actually seeing. So this is a live character being driven from on a PC. So this is being streamed from Pete's office. It's streaming straight to the cloud, so no PC in Pete's office, and it's streaming straight to a PC here in my office. And I'm picking up that feed. Then we're basically sharing that feed on this webinar. But it doesn't need to be a PC. We actually have technology now where we can integrate it into anything that has an HDMI port. So if it's just an HDMI port, we can actually use smaller devices, cheaper devices that will pick up the stream, and then we can stream a live content straight into those devices. So, and we can also do live to mobile phone, tablet, etc. So tablet, PC, screen, anything with a screen, effectively, is what we're able to stream into.
Johnny, you're doing an amazing complimentary set for us as well by sort of visually narrating for James's commentary.
Yeah, exactly. So Johnny Goblin here is able to respond to performers, and when we give a video feedback to Johnny, so if it's being done on a big LED stage, for instance, or in an LED box, and Johnny can actually see the performers, then he can have a real-time interaction, just like what we're doing here. So not only is he able to talk to us, but he can also talk to any of the audiences. And the exciting thing here is that this has got so many applications. This technology can be used to take IP that can be used for Twitch streams, YouTube streams, etc. from an experiential perspective, but it can also be used onto anything with a screen. And Johnny's just showing off his muscles and doing a bit of the Arnie pose. Very nice indeed.
Yeah, and I mean, what you'll notice there is he's expanding as he's doing his posing as well. So you've got what you have in essence here. Whilst this is a Goblin, you have the capability to be hyper personalized for your brand as well. And apart from bodybuilding poses, I know Johnny loves to do a Saturday Night Fever, don't you, Johnny? So perhaps
Oh,
you'd
yeah.
like to share with the audience some of your moves, because this boy can move. There you go. And that just, highlights real-time capability, on demand interaction, and being able to create sort of a personalized experience, and our ability to be able to stream into multiple different devices. Those can be from the large billboards that James was talking about earlier, into LED screens, into TVs, into computers. Go on, Pete, you can go. Johnny, you can go smaller, into iPhones. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many different things here, and we can even put a disco ball on Johnny as well. So it's a great thing, and we have the capability to do other characters as well as Johnny. So if I flick through here, hopefully we'll see some kind of other characters joining Johnny in the background. So he now has a 3-piece. And then I'll flick through. So we have an alien, a king,
a metahuman.
And a metahuman.
Pete is a metahuman. There you go. So that's actually a digital version of Pete.
Hello.
Doing his thing.
It's actually me.
It is actually you.
Yeah, that's what he looks like in the real world.
So I think that just brings to the fore the personalization that you can bring to a brand's asset, and the ease that we can take a brand's asset and turn it into a live asset and stream that easily, with the integration of our technology, and obviously with the Oculus we're able to pull out the face and the hand movement, and obviously with our sensor system we're able to sort of capture the body, and it's the integration of those and the communication that sort of bring this rich experience where you can communicate directly with a digital character if you wanted to, or something a little bit more esoteric and different. But the applications then are quite broad for music concerts, into heritage sites and museums, general types of advertising and trade shows as well. So there's a broad space of application for digital experiences with digital characters, to bring a brand asset to life. And Johnny does it really well.
Yeah, and you just if you think about it, there's so many brands out there that already have a character or IP. Mickey Mouse is probably the most famous, obviously, with Walt Disney, but Ronald McDonald, all those ones. There's so many different bits of IP where you're able to take them and animate them in the real world, and have real engagements using that brand's IP. But it can be driven by anybody who could be anywhere. And because it's all remote, it means that we can really cut down on the costs to do this type of technology. So what we're showing, some of it's never been done before. There's a number of world's firsts that have been done, but other bits have been possible before, but the costs have just been astronomical, where it's only ever been done for a one-off PR stunt, and it's just not been possible to do it on a case by case. But the way that we've actually created our technology and how our technology works means that it's now accessible. So for trade shows, for instance, it's very accessible and affordable for brands that are looking to stand out. For instance, at a trade show, we can create live characters that can stand out, but we can also do billboards. We can also do AR experiences. And there's some exciting stuff we're doing in the not too distant future where we'll have multiple performer, which opens up an entirely new level of entertainment and a new genre of entertainment as well, where in VR you can experience multi-performer, and you can experience a production where you have live performers spread across the planet, and engaging with you in real time, and giving you a real honest, a real performance, not a recorded performance, but you feel that you're there and physically there because you're very full immersion. So there's these amazing things that we can do for both product launches, but also for actual main entertainment as well.
And I think one of the things that we're really passionate about, and Johnny brings this to life really, really well, is emotion. Because part of an experience is the ability to be pulled in through an emotion. It's very, very powerful. And whilst Johnny loves waggling his ears and dancing, our digital characters are very emotive, which adds to that experience, and I think it makes it more poignant and rememberable for people who are attending these events, because they will remember it. There's not often you go, well, I had an interaction with a goblin who had chatted away with me and was very expressive, with humor. That's not necessarily the norm, but it's certainly memorable. As Johnny will attest to here.
Oh yes.
Perhaps on that note, John, we should jump onto the Leap show. Actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Johnny, do you want to wave bye?
Bye bye.
See you, Johnny. Take care.
See you.
Let me just switch over. And I think this is the this is us at the Leap show. So we partnered with a company called Mirage, which is the holographic display that you can see that we're streaming into. So this is essentially us streaming from the UK into a holographic display in Saudi Arabia 3 weeks ago, our digital characters. And the beautiful part, about this experience is that with a holographic display, you get this depth. You get a real beautiful depth perception, and we had lots of interaction with our audience. And if you're looking about, the power of an experience, what do you want your audience to experience? Well, you want laughter, you want engagement, you want to make it memorable, and then all of a sudden you want people getting their cameras out, their phones out. And at one point we were often overwhelmed where we would be doing selfies with Johnny Goblin. The user shared content was going through the roof because there was selfies, videos being taken constantly. So, particularly as brands are looking for smart ways to get other people to leverage their brand rather than them predominantly talking about how great they are, there's nothing more powerful than somebody else talking about a great experience that a brand has put on. And it was what was very interesting about this experience is, from an emotional point of view, laughter, smiling, a lot of curiosity as well, because at times attendees would go down to the side of the box because they thought there was a performer actually in the box rather than this goblin being streamed and driven by a performer in the UK directly into a holographic box in Saudi Arabia, 5,000 kilometers away in real time as well.
Yeah.
So, an amazing experience. And the other thing that really resonated was the attraction that it did to kids as well. It would be quite frequent that you'd get, children wanting to high five the goblin or go up and touch the screen. So again, really putting on that sort of emotive experience and connection, and particularly when they were dialoguing directly with, either the digital metahuman that you can see there or Johnny Goblin. It's quite incredible to see the pull in the experience.
Yeah, completely, and it really stood out as well because there were at the Leap show, which had an enormous investment from the Saudi government, but also enormous investment from brands that were attending it. 200,000 attendees that were walking the floors at this place, and one of the things I took away from it was that a lot of brands were showcasing AI because AI is the buzzword, and obviously brands want to be showing that. But loads of people came up to us and said that this is the best thing they've seen because it was a human-to-human engagement. And by being able to provide performers that can drive characters and have a human-to-human connection, that was something that it wasn't possible to get from the AI chatbots, which have still have a large delay between question and answers. And then the other challenge with the chatbots, although chatbots will improve over time, of course, but the other challenge with them is that the body language just doesn't sit there. So actually having a real human made such a difference to the performance, and the performer feeding off of the enthusiasm of the audience feeding off the enthusiasm of the performer. And it's this lovely positive loop that created a really memorable moment, not just for us, but for those that engaged with the tech on the day. It was,
and I think, I mean, to add to that, James, you had authenticity as well.
Yes, completely. Yeah,
which again is really powerful, because you can weave together stories and tell a story. You can create an emotional response. You've got a level of authenticity with, even though the character is a digital character, is driven by a human, and that you can feel that when you experience it. And it's the combination of those factors that help craft and create that experience. That sensory experience, because you're also going to be seeing a lot of sort of sensory experiences permeate into the market sector as well. And I think it's the mixture of those experiences that will become really, really powerful and fun and exciting and interesting. And you can see the levels of curiosity and interaction will go up as a result.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, it was a great demo and a good way to showcase. But it's also showcasing, some of what we're talking about, the LED technology. This LED technology with the transparency is what gives these types of technology the ability to create these illusions of holographic displays. And Mirage have an incredibly high resolution display driving their box, and so it really does look incredibly convincing, especially when you stand about 1 meter back. The level of quality and detail is phenomenal, and being able to stream that straight in real time, straight into from the UK was fantastic.
Yeah, great experience.
Yeah. So with that, it kind of brings our kind of conversation to a close. Hopefully you've found the odd bit insightful. This is my favorite image of that show, which is we had a couple of these occur, but this is the one that we managed to capture at the right time, with someone engaging on a one-to-one, a human-to-human level with the digital character. But yeah, hopefully some of what we've kind of shared today, there's some tidbits that add value into whatever it is that you're doing. And always reach out to me and John if there's any opportunities that you'd like to discuss. We are very much a kind of an open book type company, so we really do show a lot of what we're up to on our social media channels. So do check them out. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got any questions before we close out, please fire across. If not, as James said, please do get in touch. And yeah, I mean, for me, this picture epitomizes an experience. Real connection, a digital character, even though that digital character is driven by a human, with a child. Quite amazing to watch it. Tentative at first, but with an interaction with the goblin, who was being very nice at the time, sort of enticing this child in to, interact, was quite incredible. So, special moment that, actually, I have to say, for an immersive experience, really, really special. But, thank you very much for taking the time to listen. And like James said, I hope we've, showcased some value that has given you something to think about, or something that you could deploy in your world.
Yeah. All right. In that note, thanks for the kind comments, and
we'll see you at the next live immersive experience with a number of different characters to entice you in with.
Yeah, fantastic. All right.
Okay.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.